Let us journey back to a time of great upheaval in our own world, when the shadow of war stretched long over London. 4 siblings, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and young Lucy Pevensey, were sent away from the city's dangers to the sanctuary of the countryside, finding refuge in the sprawling, mysterious house of an old professor. It was a house full of echoing corridors, suits of armor, and endless rooms ripe for exploration, a welcome distraction from their anxieties. It was Lucy, the youngest and most open-hearted, who first stumbled upon the house's greatest secret. During a game of hide-and-seek, she pushed past a row of heavy fur coats hanging in an old wardrobe, expecting to find the hard wooden back. Instead, her fingers met the prickle of pine needles, her feet crunched upon snow, and the cold, crisp air of another world filled her lungs. She found herself in a snow-covered wood, a solitary lamppost glowing inexplicably amidst the trees. Here, she encountered a faun, Mr. Tumnus, a creature of myth carrying parcels through the snow. He was startled, yet gentle, inviting Lucy to his cozy cave for tea and stories. But his initial kindness hid a troubled conscience. He confessed tearfully that he served the White Witch, the cruel tyrant who had cast Narnia into a perpetual winter, never reaching Christmas, and that he had intended to betray Lucy to her. Yet, moved by Lucy's innocence, he couldn't go through with it and helped her find her way back to the wardrobe. Lucy burst back into the professor's house, breathless with wonder, only to find that mere moments had passed in her own world. Her siblings, particularly the pragmatic Susan and the increasingly spiteful Edmund, scoffed at her tale of a snowy land within the wardrobe, dismissing it as childish fantasy. Edmund, feeling overlooked and resentful, was especially cruel in his teasing. Driven partly by curiosity and partly by a desire to mock Lucy further, Edmund soon followed her path. He too pushed through the coats and found himself in the silent, white wood. But he did not find Lucy. Instead, a grand sleigh appeared, pulled by reindeer, bearing a tall, pale, and icily beautiful woman wrapped in white furs, identifying herself as the Queen of Narnia. This was Jadis, the White Witch. Sensing the boy's discontent and weakness, she plied him with enchanted Turkish delight, a confection so addictive it filled his thoughts with little else. She spoke honeyed words, promising him power, promising to make him a prince, eventually king, if only he would bring his brother and sisters to her castle. Blinded by greed and the magical sweetness, Edmund readily agreed, keeping his own visit and this sinister pact a secret upon returning, even cruelly denying Narnia's existence to Lucy's face. Eventually, circumstance led all 4 Pevensey children to tumble into the wardrobe together while hiding from the professor's stern housekeeper. Peter and Susan were forced to confront the truth of Lucy's story as the snowy landscape stretched before them. Their awe, however, quickly turned to concern when they sought out Mr. Tumnus, only to find his cave ransacked and a notice declaring his arrest for treason for harboring a human. Guided by a robin, and then finding more reliable help from a pair of kind, bustling, talking beavers, the children were taken to the safety of the beavers' snug dam. Over a simple, hearty meal, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver revealed the truth of Narnia. The land was groaning under the White Witch's century-long winter, awaiting the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. This prophecy spoke of 2 sons of Adam and 2 daughters of Eve sitting on the 4 thrones at Cair Paravel, the coastal castle, which would signal the end of the witch's reign and the end of her life. More than that, they spoke of Aslan, the great lion, the son of the emperor over the sea, the true king of Narnia, who was rumored to be on the move, returning to Narnia to challenge the witch. The children, they explained, were destined to meet him at the stone table. During this revelation, horror dawned upon them as they realized Edmund was missing. He had slipped away, drawn by the memory of Turkish delight and the witch's promises, making his treacherous way towards her forbidding castle. The beavers knew the danger. They had to reach Aslan before the witch could capture all 4 children. Edmund's journey to the witch was one of growing disillusionment. The promise of warmth and power dissolved into the grim reality of her castle, a courtyard filled with statues, creatures turned to stone by her wand, and her chillingly cold reception. Far from being welcomed as a prince, he was treated with contempt, his information about his siblings extracted, his hunger ignored. He witnessed her cruelty firsthand as she turned festive woodland creatures, celebrating a rumor of Father Christmas, into stone. Meanwhile, Peter, Susan, Lucy, and the beavers began their own desperate trek towards the stone table. Their journey became a sign of hope, for as they traveled, the endless winter began to break. The snow softened, rivers thawed, birds sang, and the air grew warmer. Their path led them to an encounter long thought impossible under the witch's rule. Father Christmas arrived, not in his sleigh, but trudging through the melting snow. He bestowed upon them tools, not toys. For Peter, a sword and shield. For Susan, a bow with arrows and a magical horn to blow if in dire need. And for Lucy, a small dagger and a cordial made from the juice of fireflowers, capable of healing almost any injury. These gifts signified the witch's power was truly waning, and Aslan's return was imminent. The witch, enraged by the thaw and news of Aslan's arrival, set out in pursuit with Edmund shivering miserably beside her. But the melting snow bogged down her sleigh, forcing her to continue on foot with her fiercest follower, the wolf Maugrim, captain of her secret police. Finally, the 3 siblings and the beavers reached the stone table, a place of ancient power. There, amidst a growing assembly of loyal Narnians, fauns, centaurs, dryads, talking beasts, stood Aslan himself. His presence was immense, majestic, radiating both power and profound goodness. Peter, stepping forward, presented himself and his sisters. Soon after, Aslan dispatched a rescue party who freed Edmund from the witch's clutches, bringing the penitent boy back to his siblings. Aslan spoke privately with Edmund, and though the content remained unknown, it was clear forgiveness had been offered and accepted. Edmund was changed, his spite replaced with quiet courage and loyalty. But the witch would not be so easily denied. She appeared before Aslan, invoking the deep magic from the dawn of time, the ancient law carved into the stone table itself. This law stated that every traitor belonged to her, their blood forfeit. She demanded Edmund's life. The assembly watched in fearful silence as Aslan spoke long and privately with the witch. To everyone's astonishment and horror, the witch departed, seemingly satisfied, after Aslan announced the pact was fulfilled, though he looked grave and heavy-hearted. That night, Aslan commanded his followers to move camp, leaving the stone table behind. He walked alone towards it, his golden head bowed. Unable to bear seeing his sorrow, Lucy and Susan secretly followed him. They watched in hidden grief as he met not the witch alone, but her vile followers, ogres, wolves, hags, and creatures of darkness. Aslan offered no resistance as they bound him, shaved his glorious mane, spat upon him, and mocked him. Then, upon the stone table, the white witch, gloating in her apparent triumph, plunged her stone knife into his heart. Believing she had defeated prophecy and secured her reign forever, she rallied her army to march and crush Peter's forces. Heartbroken, Susan and Lucy crept out to Aslan's body after the foul creatures departed. They wept over him, loosening his bonds. As dawn approached, tiny field mice emerged and nibbled away the ropes completely. Then, a sound like thunder cracked the air. The stone table split in two, and Aslan stood before them, larger, more radiant than ever. He explained that the witch, knowing only the deep magic, was unaware of a deeper magic from before the dawn of time. This magic decreed that when a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack, and death itself would start working backwards. Filled with renewed hope and power, Aslan carried the joyful girls on his back, racing like the wind to the witch's castle. With his warm breath, he brought the stone statues back to life, Mr. Tumnus, giants, centaurs, animals all freed from their stone imprisonment. This newly liberated army surged out of the castle towards the sounds of battle. They arrived to find Peter and the loyal Narnians locked in a desperate fight against the witch's horde. Peter fought bravely, but the witch's magic was still potent. Edmund, in a moment of decisive courage, fought his way to the witch and shattered her magic wand with his sword, though he was grievously wounded in the act. This turned the tide. Then, with a mighty roar, Aslan himself leaped upon the White Witch, ending her tyranny forever. The battle was won. Lucy rushed to the fallen Edmund and administered a drop of her magic cordial, healing his wounds. Aslan healed others too, and peace settled over the land. True to the prophecy, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy were led to the castle of Cair Paravel by the sea. There, amidst great celebration, Aslan crowned them kings and queens of Narnia. They ruled wisely and justly for many long years, growing into noble adults, their reign becoming known as the Golden Age. Narnia flourished under their care, the memory of the long winter fading into legend. One day, King Peter the Magnificent, Queen Susan the Gentle, King Edmund the Just, and Queen Lucy the Valiant were hunting the white stag, a magical creature said to grant wishes. The chase led them deep into the western woods, towards a familiar sight, a lamppost standing alone. Pushing through thick branches that felt strangely like coats, they suddenly found themselves tumbling not out of branches, but out of an old wardrobe, back into the empty room in the professor's house. They were children again, not a moment older than when they had first entered Narnia, the whole vast span of their reign having passed in mere seconds of Earth time. Their adventure seemed like a shared dream, yet the wise old professor, upon hearing their tale, assured them it was real. He spoke knowingly of other worlds and hinted that their time in Narnia might not be truly over, though they likely wouldn't return through the wardrobe again. And so, the Pevensey children carried the secret wonder of Narnia within them, forever changed by their journey through the wardrobe, by the love and sacrifice of a great lion, and by the battles fought for a land held captive by winter, now eternally free.